Hello, my name is Brittany Lord, and I'm the facilitator for the Remembering Our Babies group. I hope this video finds you well. Today, this month, marks 1 year since we rolled out this new way of reaching people in our community, locally and beyond, who are part of a community that is so difficult and so many people don't talk about. And so we're just so excited about bringing these videos just to offer some psychoeducation, some help, and some support for our community. This video is not intended to diagnose or treat, and if someone is having a medical health emergency, please stop the video and head to your nearest emergency medical facility. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to us or drop a comment in the comments box after the video. Again, as I mentioned, a year ago, we rolled out 3 new ways that were coming alongside people in our community, locally and beyond, to help those who have lost a child due to infant death, miscarriage, or who struggle with the horrible pain of infertility. My name is Brittany Lord, as I said, and I'm an LPC MHSP right here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I see clients individually and through this program. So the 3 ways that we're rolling out to help what we've done this year. One, we have our annual fundraiser every single, either when it's October or November time. We come together and we remember those children that we've lost or the hope of our children. There's raffles, games, fun, great activities for kids, food trucks. And at the end of the day, there's a walk to remember for us to be able to take the steps that our babies never got to take. After that, you can participate in any and all or parts of the program. After that, there's going to be a candle lighting ceremony, and we'll have some very special music to be able to commemorate. Please make plans this next year in 2024 to attend. It is such a special, sweet time. We're also offering 2 included, I shouldn't say free because it's included, the proceeds from our group fund the counseling sessions, 2 individual counseling sessions. So please message us, reach out to us either on Facebook or on this YouTube channel for more information. And also these videos every single month, as I mentioned before, we're coming alongside you just to offer some really experiential, great ways to be able to process the physical and mental and emotional effects of grief and those spiritual effects of grief. So last month, we talked a little bit about the 2 different types of grievers. It was February, and so in honor of Valentine's Day, I wanted to talk with you last time about the intuitive versus instrumental style. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, wow, you know, we kind of put people in a box of what we're supposed to do, right, when we grieve. And it occurred to me, there's really some myths around grief that we really need to debunk. So I'm going to do that for you today. To kind of piggyback on last month, we talked about, again, the 2 different types of grievers. And I think that's probably one of the biggest myths that I hear, or not necessarily that people come out and say, perhaps in a direct way, but we assume that there's one way to grieve. And we know that that's not really the case. Intuitive grievers, maybe that may look like sadness, crying, pulling alongside of our support system, maybe some isolation, really working on that emotional deep dive into what's happening inside with your feelings and your thoughts. So that's intuitive grieving. Instrumental grieving is doing, like we're being instrumental and focusing on the actions that we can take through our grieving process. Now, keep in mind, not that both people, if you've got 2 people that are, one's intuitive griever and one's an instrumental griever, they can cross over, but this is a normal pattern of their grief process. Some of the clients that I have talked to, and when they do instrumental grieving, they might build a chicken coop. They might run a race or organize a foundation or a GoFundMe page, or maybe just plant a tree. These are all things that I've heard, and they're great ways to put your grief into your actions. Now, I bring this out many times because those who are intuitive grievers most often may see their partner who is an instrumental griever, or maybe even a friend or a family member, and they may assume that they're not grieving the loss. And that's nothing further from the truth. Couldn't be further from the truth, excuse me. Number two, grief myth debunked is there is a timetable for grief. Now, I heard this from a client, and if this pastor is listening to this video, I'm sorry, but shame on you. I had a friend, wasn't a client, excuse me, that lost her child at 12 days. And a pastor came up to her and said, you really need to be over this in 6 months. I have a lot of choice words for that, and this is a widely dispersed video, so I won't use those. But just to let you know, there is no timetable for grief. You've loved this person, especially if this person has been in your life for years. Maybe it's not this situation, but maybe it's that child that's lost too soon. When we love hard, we are going to grieve hard. And there is no greater love than we can know as parents, that love from a parent to a child. So there's no timetable for grief. If after some time it becomes discouraging or concerning for those who are grieving the loss of a child, or through grieving the loss of a hope of a child through infertility, if you have a concern about that, reach out to a helper, reach out to a counselor or a trusted professional. We can kind of give you some guidance as to help you move through that grieving process. But grief myth number 2 debunked. There is no timetable for grief. Number 3, you shouldn't be angry, and you certainly should not be angry at God. Now, I may get some comments on this one, and feel free to bring me your information, and I want to hear it, and let's have a great conversation. And I'm certainly open for constructive criticism and a disagreement. But I personally think you can be angry, and you can be angry at God. I have a pastor friend that recently I heard him say that God is our perfect parent. And as a parent, I have 2 teenagers myself. We, at some point, our teenager or child may tell us that they're angry at us. They may even storm off and tell us they don't love us anymore and that we're unfair to them. Well, we know as parents that they're hurting, they're angry, or they're sad, or disappointed, and we know that they do love us, and that's just part of being a parent. And just like the Lord knows, as our perfect parent, that we're hurting, we're angry, we're sad, and we're disappointed. So that's grief myth number 3 debunked. Number 4, the stages of grief, and we've talked about that a couple of times on this channel, go in a nice, neat, linear fashion. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. I liken the grief experience and going through the 5 stages of grief kind of like a boat with no sail, no wind, no motor, just thrown about on a sea of waves and coming up and down. Maybe that's through denial, depression, bargaining, those thoughts of if only or what if, maybe even some anger at times, and even coming at times to a place of acceptance of our new normal. Not that this is okay, but acceptance of our new normal. So when we're cycling through these 5 stages of grief, we do not go through them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we may be at 1, we may be over at 3, 5, 4, 2, and then back again in the course of a week, a minute, a second, or a month or years. So it many times can feel chaotic, but cycling through and seeing the presence of those 5 stages of grief mean that you are on the road to healing. So it's a positive thing. So that's grief myth number 4, debunked. Grief myth number 5, say that 5 times real fast. Grief myth number 5. I can compare my experience to someone else. If you lose a child in the exact same way, the exact same day, everything, all factors the same, it is still not the same experience. Why is that? Well, if we think of it, I come from a different place in life than you come from, than your neighbor comes from. We're all taught different things, and we have different experiences from what our culture and our own just human experience teaches us. The way that I grieve the loss of my child, and I do grieve the loss of a child. Brock Dennison Lord was born in 2013. Last year, he would have been 10 years old. We lost him at 23 days old. And I think about him every single day. But even if someone lost their child in the same way that I did, that doesn't mean their grief experience is going to look the same. And we can't compare that. I may be in a different place in my grieving process than my neighbor. She may be a little farther along. We may look at those 5 stages of grief and they may look totally different for us. We can't compare grief because we can't compare lives because we're all unique. So that's grief myth number 5 debunked. You know, there may be some other myths that you've been noticing. Please feel free to drop that in the comment box, and this list is certainly not all encompassing. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there around grief. In the mental health world, we're really trying to open up and let's have some honest conversations. Too many times people are struggling and they don't feel comfortable talking to other people because we haven't opened up the conversations. We have no problem talking about maybe our high cholesterol or our arthritis as we get older, but many times we're hesitant to talk about depression, anxiety, some of these really, really hard things that we know 67% of people will experience at some time in their life. So if the majority of people will have a mental health struggle, then why aren't we talking about this? As I mentioned before, this is a group and a community and a club, call it what you will, that not one single one of us want to be a part of. But we know that other people struggle, and this idea of universality, that other people have these same struggles, not exactly the same as we talked about in grief myth number 5, but that we understand and we're a part of that community, and we can come alongside you both with this site and with each other. Don't suffer in silence. Please reach out to us as helpers. Reach out to a trusted friend. Get the help that you need. I hope this video finds you well, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.